Welcome to this episode of the Real Fast Results podcast. And I am so pleased and happy that you are with us because today we're going to talk about one of the things that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is audiobooks. In fact, I remember way back in the day that ACX didn't exist, that in order to do an audiobook, you had to basically spend $3,000 or $4,000 up front to actually get it out into the marketplace. And of course, that has changed. Now you can go through a site like ACX, which is a sort of an offshoot of Audible.com, which of course is an offshoot of Amazon.com. So one's a parent company, or I should say a child company of the next. And ACX stands for Audiobook Creation Exchange. And I have an expert in the house today. His name is Richard Reiman. And Richard is he's got the audiobook, and he has actually got Audiobook Revolution Productions, where he helps folks just like you to get your audiobooks out into the marketplace. He's also the author of The Author's Guide to Audiobook Creation, available on Amazon. And Richard is an audiobook self-publishing expert and top Audible audiobook narrator and producer. He has narrated dozens of titles on Amazon, Audible, iTunes, and many more. Before his audiobook adventures, Mr. Reiman was a news anchor and a reporter for RKO Radio Networks in New York and WTOP in Washington, D.C., as well as ABC and NBC Radio in Chicago. So with that, welcome, Richard, to today's broadcast. And I like to start off every episode with the question, what are we promising today?
Well, thank you, Daniel. And we are promising that I will show you how to make money with audiobooks, more money with audiobooks than you can make with eBooks these days. Audiobooks are exploding right now. The growth is tremendous. Sales are up 35% so far this year, after growth of 20% the past 2 years. Audible listening is up 38%. So this is a way to repurpose your existing content and make more money.
Right. And this is a key thing, right? This is a super important thing that folks really should take away from not only this episode, but from many of my episodes. And that's the idea of leveraging presently existing assets such that they bring in more money with minimal work, right? And essentially what you're saying is that you can take the same book that you already have out in the marketplace and do a audiobook version of that and have that out and selling as well. And it's just smart to do this. So are there any other benefits to pursuing this?
Yes, exactly. You've already written the lyrics. Now add the song, add the voice to it, and create an audiobook. And I did a poll of 80% of the authors that I created audiobooks for over the past year. And 80% of those authors made more money from their audiobooks than from their ebooks, because audiobooks are priced higher, much higher than ebooks are. There are fewer audiobooks per genre, so it's easier to find the audiobook version that you have out there. Plus, because Amazon has their WhisperSync program, people will buy a Kindle version and the audiobook. They get a bargain if they buy both. And it's great. With WhisperSync, you can stop reading on your Kindle and pick up hearing it at exactly the same spot in your audiobook. So the technology is moving forward. People are now listening to audiobooks on their smartphones, which is the biggest way that people listen now, not just in their cars, while they're multitasking. This is a whole new audience for your book, waiting for it. And Audible is making a tremendous advertising push right now with TV ads, radio ads, to get more audiobook listeners. So this is pushing even more people to be in your potential audience.
Absolutely. And, the really interesting thing as well is that these audiobook listeners, I know, and I'd love to hear your take on this, but the audiobook listeners tend to be more engaged and sort of hyper book lovers anyway, which means, of course, that if they find your title and like what you've got, it is highly likely that they will go and buy the printed version, your ebook version, and any other audiobook titles that you may have. And as an author, that's huge, because you can turn one purchase into many purchases, and that's a big doggone deal.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. Audiobook listeners are fans. So you're building your fan base for everything that you do, written as well as spoken word. So audiobooks are the way to go because it's one of the few things where the cost of producing them is coming down. At the same time, the profit is going up from audiobooks. As you said, it used to cost $5,000. It used to cost for the major productions, $100,000. Now, with narrators with their home booths like I'm in right now, um, they're producing from home, going through the Audiobook Creation Exchange, acx.com, and sharing the royalties with the author. And that's your only expense. Basically, if you don't think your audiobook is going to sell, you can actually put it out there for almost no cost up front at all.
I
And
know.
where else can you do that? I mean, it's an amazing opportunity. You can get a professional narrator. They handle the recording, the editing, mastering it for Audible and iTunes, and getting it on your Amazon page. They handle all of that for a share of the profits. So that's a great part of the ACX program.
Absolutely. And not only that, you can pick and choose and actually audition narrators for your book there as well. So if you have written a Western and you want sort of a Western twanged female, then you could find them on ACX. The same with an Irish brogue, or a Scotch or a Scots brogue, or just about any other type of sort of
Yeah,
linguistic sort of accent. And just
exactly.
especially if that helps to make your book come alive. So that's the other thing. It's not just you have some choices with that. In fact, I have a book where I've done exactly that. It's the Speak on Cruise Ships book. I'm sorry, it's the Speaker's Cruise Free book, where we did exactly that. I handed the manuscript over. I chose a narrator that I thought would do a good job, and they did it. And each month we sell books, and I think it's a 50-50 split. They get half of the
Mhm.
royalties, I get half of the royalties. And the beautiful thing about this is but for this program, I would have never probably had the thing produced in the first place. So even though I'm splitting the royalties 50-50, it's found money for me, because I had very
Exactly.
little to do with the actual production of it after I sort of handed it off to one of these narrators. So you could definitely do that. So let's talk about this for just a second, because for those folks that don't know, one of the very first things that I did when I sort of dipped a toe in the audiobook world was I sort of figured out how to go about actually recording your own. And I amalgamated, put this into, it was a it still is a very successful training called realfastaudiobook.com. And I'll try to find one of my old replay where I sort of take you through the process and put it in the show notes for this show. But Richard, can you sort of give us the broad brush overview of what it takes to actually do this?
Yeah, let's look at it two ways. If you're hiring a narrator and if you want to narrate your own book. If you're hiring a narrator, you go on acx.com and register. You decide whether you want to be exclusive to Amazon, iTunes, and Audible, or non-exclusive. Now, honestly, most sales of audiobooks, like books, are through Amazon. About 80% is the latest survey. But you may want to sell to libraries. You may want to sell internationally, which ACX doesn't allow you to do. So you'd go non-exclusive in that case. You give up some of your royalties if you go the non-exclusive route. So you get 40% of every book sale as a royalty share. Amazon, and all their wisdom and power, take 60% for having the platform. Um, and you can share that 40% 50-50 with a narrator. You put up a brief 5-minute excerpt from your book for auditions, and you can say what you're looking for. If you're looking for an Irish brogue, if it's 20 characters, you want to make sure that in your audition, you're putting some of those voices so you can hear what the voices will sound like. Uh, and really, you follow along with the narrator and producer as they put your book out. It takes 30 to 60 days, the process altogether, to get a completed book. It depends how long the book is, because you also have the option for pay for production. If you pay for production, you get to keep your full royalty share, all 40%, and you control everything that way. And a lot of people will pay $100 or more per finished hour. That's how they measure it, how long the audiobook runs. So say a 5-hour long audiobook, which is about roughly 30,000 words, you can pay $500 and not have to share your royalties. So you have that option through ACX. Narrating your own, um, get some good equipment. The equipment out there is getting less and less expensive to set it up in your home. Go into a closet. That's always good for the acoustics. And basically record yourself, even on a USB microphone, and you can get pretty good quality. You're not going to sound like the big studio sounds, but you can get fairly good quality. And I walk you through in my book about what kind of equipment you can get if you want to narrate your own book. But I would be cautious because it is a marathon. Narrating your own book is hard work. And unless you have a background like you as a public speaker or as an actor or on the radio, you're comfortable in front of a microphone, you realize you're not just reading out loud, you're actually having a conversation with the listener. If you can master that, then yes, you know your words the best. You should narrate your own book.
Absolutely. And that's the other thing that I just adore about this is the fact that they have made that relatively easy to upload your files. Although what I have learned in the years that I've been doing this is that when ACX first launched, and I first launched real fast audiobook.com, the requirements, the quality requirements were less stringent than they are today. As time has evolved, they have made it, they're demanding better and better quality sounding quality. And I know that within the realfastaudiobook.com training, I've had to update it to keep current with those standards, because that's what that program is all about for me, is basically walking people through that process, going into their closet, as you say. That's another one of my tips, keeping all the clothes in there to stop the echo chamber effect, and in turning out to going into the closet. That's right. And actually recording it there. So let's just kind of switch gears here and talk about why. One of the things that I hear when I talk about audiobooks, because I'll say, hey, audiobooks are a great idea, but I will hear authors say, yeah, but But Amazon's only paying me 40%, and it seems like a lot of work. They only get 40%, and la la la. How would you answer folks with that concern?
Well, basically, most authors are used to retailers, distributors getting 55% on the sale of their books. So 60% by Amazon is not really that outrageous when you consider they are the place where people are going to find your audiobook and buy it. They are really the site in the rankings. As you know, how important marketing is. Just creating an audiobook and putting it out there won't make a difference in sales. You also have to really market the audiobook. So that 40% actually on a $20 audiobook. Remember, the prices are higher for audiobooks than they are for ebooks. They're closer to your paperback price. You'll make $8 or $4 per sale. Um, and that ain't bad if you're selling hundreds of audiobooks, which you can easily do. And let me get you in on a few secrets now. Audible has this great marketing program called Send This Book. It's a promotional way where you can send your audiobook to anybody you know, as long as you have their email address. If it's the first audiobook they download, it counts as a sale. You get a royalty share. So you are actually giving away your book. They don't even have to sign up for an Audible subscription, not even the trial subscription. Totally free. And if it's the first audiobook they've downloaded, you get credit for a sale. And one of my authors, Carrie Dickey with Network Marketing, sold 900 audiobooks in the first 60 days using that method. So it's a tremendous promotional program. I don't know how long it's going to last, but it's going on now. Also, you get 25 Audible gift codes every time you do an audiobook. So you can also buy your own book and gift it to people. And that counts as a sale. And if you run out of 25, a little hint, call Audible, say you're out of codes, and they'll give you 25 more. Okay, you've got 50 audiobooks that you can buy yourself and give away, and they count as sales. Where else can you do that type of thing? And this is because Audible wants more audiobook listeners. So be a part of that effort, and all of a sudden you've sold 50, 100 copies of your audiobook right out of the gate by giving them away.
That's gold. That's absolute gold, Richard. Thank you for that. And the really cool thing about this is, and you alluded to this just a second ago, that you have to market your book, right? You have to market anything that you do. It's not Field of Dreams, right? It's not you build it and they will come. It's not that at all. So get that out of your head if that was sort of rattling around up there. But having programs like this make it so easy to market your book, to at least get it going, to get it sort of percolating in the rankings, right? I mean, you're giving it away, for crying out loud. Yes. A professionally done book available on Amazon with all of the credibility and third-party endorsement that implies, and people get it for free. I mean, that's just awesome. And you get, oh my gosh, that's very, very exciting. So the other thing that I wanted to ask you about, Richard, was what other ways, or how else do you approach the marketing of these audiobooks?
There are a few different sites where you can get reviews. Audiobook Boom is one of them that's used very widely. And it costs all of $10 to put your audiobook on there, and it's sent out to people for review. So you're sending out copies of your audiobook for free and getting reviews, which, as you know, are golden when it comes to your book or your audiobook. And there are also sites, audiobookraviewer.com is one, that specialize in audiobooks of certain genres. Audiobook Reviewer specializes in sci-fi, fantasy, and adventure. So if your audiobook falls in that category, they will promote it for you at a very minimal cost. And it's a way of reaching those fans of your genre. So if you write romance, there are romance sites out there to put your book up to get reviews and also to sell them. Uh, and really, you have to realize that just like your paperback and ebook, having the audiobook be part of every marketing effort you do. Treat your audiobook launch as a brand new book launch for your existing book. So it's an opportunity to shout out once again over social media that you have a new book. You can even bring old books back to life as an audiobook, something that you wrote 5 years ago. Do an audiobook version and announce the book launch. You've got a new baby. It's the same book you wrote 5 years ago, the same material, and yet it's a new way to make money. Call attention to your book as well as the audiobook. So, I wrote a blog that, if your book is mostly dead, like in Princess Bride, you can breathe a little life into it by doing an audiobook version. And I think that's very important. Even if you have an audiobook on CD, but never put it up for streaming, do that. Take those files. And I've been working on this with some authors who did audiobooks 5 years ago on CD. Let's get them up on Audible and iTunes and Amazon. And it's not difficult to do and not expensive to do.
Awesome. I mean, what great advice again for repackaging and repurposing content that you already have. I mean, it's actually, and don't even have to think about it, type of proposition. And the other thing I wanted folks to really understand about audiobooks and why they are so doggone important to consider actually doing it. It actually is pretty well illustrated in a story I want to tell you that happened to me when I speak at a lot of events all over the country and all over the world, for that matter. As a matter of fact, that's where you and I met, Richard, at an event. You were speaking, I was speaking, and you know how it is. It's kind of like when we had this opportunity to go out to dinner and chat after the event, that I was with a couple friends of mine, and I was telling them about a great book. It was a completely different topic, not related to the conference where we were speaking, and I was telling them about this great book, and I was saying, hey, you really should think about getting this book. And the person that I was talking to, she got all excited about the book, and she turns to her then boyfriend, now husband, and says to him, could you grab this book? And he dutifully picks up her iPhone, goes to Amazon, and buys the audiobook version of the book. And of course, I didn't tell them to buy the audiobook version of the book. I just said, get the book. You really need to listen to the book. And then I said, why did you just get the audiobook version? And what she said is telling for why you should be really strongly considering doing this. Because what she said is this. She says, if I know I have a book as an audiobook, I know that I will actually get through it. I will actually have the time to listen to it. And compare that and contrast that with if I bought the ebook or the print version of the book. I don't know if I actually will read it, but I know I could listen to the audiobook while I walk my dog, while I head to the gym, whatever it happens to be. And when she said that, I mean, my mouth fell open, and I had that one of those epiphany moments, like, of course, it makes perfect sense. And how many millions of people feel the exact same way? And just to kind of circle back to what you said earlier, Richard, the very few print books, ebooks, actually make it into the ebook world, or I'm sorry, into the audiobook world, so that you have this this aperture in the marketplace. The competition, therefore, is much less. Plus, when you have the whisper sync type of deal going on, that means not only could you sell an ebook and an audiobook, or an audiobook and an ebook, but you get that second bite at the apple, and make royalties on both. I mean, mamma mia, it's sweet.
And the fastest growing way people are listening to audiobooks, I mentioned, is on the phone, but it's also because of podcasts like this. People are listening to more podcasts, and the younger generation, to them, audiobooks are just a long podcast. The Edison Research Company called podcasts the gateway drug to audiobooks, that the 18 to 24-year-olds is the fastest growing demographic listening to audiobooks. Young adult audiobooks are exploding. So there are great opportunities in certain genres, romance and young adult, that are growing exponentially in the audiobook world.
Yeah, I absolutely dig it. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, Richard, so that we could get this information disseminated. Any other steps that we need to look at in today's discussion?
Yes, I think that it's important for people to know that ACX is not the only place to produce audiobooks. There are publishers out there. There are studios, Blackstone and B Audio and Podium and more, that where you can go and get your audiobook recorded. And if you do record it yourself, you're not limited to ACX. You can go to a place called Authors Republic, which is owned by audiobook.com. And you can go there and have your audiobook distributed internationally to libraries, get it in all the catalogs, to Barnes and Noble, all the places in addition to Audible and iTunes that you want your audiobook to be. So Authors Republic is an alternative to just going through ACX and Amazon.
Yeah, and by the way, just for our international listeners, one of the big drawbacks of ACX is it is, I believe, currently limited to citizens of the United States and the United Kingdom. They may have added Canada, but
no, it's still U.S. and U.K. at the moment. Mm-hmm.
There you go. Okay, so and that's the other cool thing for those folks that want to have your outside of either of those jurisdictions, and you can go to, is it Audiobook Republic again? Is that
Authors Republic?
Authors Republic.
Right.
Yeah, and I believe that you could be anywhere in the world and actually get your book into Amazon and to these other places, regardless of where you are. Do I have that right?
Exactly. That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. So the opportunity is there beyond just Amazon's ACX.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Excellent resource. All right. So, and anything else, Richard?
Well, I always, the advice I always give is whether you're going to do an audiobook or not. And it's great to give your book a voice. It really is. It's my favorite things. Read to your kids, because that is so important when they're growing up, to love books like I did. My parents read to me. Do that, and let's raise a whole new generation of audiobook listeners.
Wise words here from Richard Reiman. Thank you so much, Richard. How do folks reach out and connect with you?
My website is audiobookrevolution.com. My email is richard@rrvoice.com to make it easy. You can find me at Richard Reiman, Reiman, on Twitter. And of course, on Facebook, I have an audiobook creation page on Facebook. And my book is The Author's Guide to Audiobook Creation. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the usual places where you're going to find your book. And I offer services that include narrating, producing books for the authors, consulting them, finding a narrator for them, walking them through the process, all of those facets of audiobook production.
Yeah, and I have to commend you. You do have a gorgeous voice. It's fun to listen to you. So
Thank you.
yeah, if you like Richard's voice, I strongly recommend you reach out to him, and maybe you do a production with Richard of your audiobook. So with that, again, I want to remind folks that I will get the link, the video replay of my realfastaudiobook.com replay, which basically will kind of take you through the process of recording your audiobook yourself, in the show notes for this show. But like every one of our shows in the Real Fast Results podcast directory, we lay out the steps for you to use, but it's up to you to use them and to implement them in your business. So my charge, like with every show, to you is to go make results happen.